Alright, we'll make a start. So welcome back to the video series. So this is part 4 where we're going to be exploring points in depth. Now, a couple of things before we start. If you've not yet seen the previous videos and you would like to, I would suggest you pause this one, go and check them out, come back to this one when you're ready. If you need a refresher on any of the videos that we've done so far, you're more than welcome to pause this one and go and check them out. Come back again when you're ready. This is for you to use how you need to use it. The second thing I need to mention, and it's an important one, is this is probably going to be a video that's going to push you and challenge you more than the other videos have done so far. And it might be the most challenging one yet. And that's because we're going to start actually drafting answers and starting to write them. Some students, from what I've seen and from what I've been told, they have difficulty starting. And that might be because they have writer's block. They have the ideas, but they don't know how to actually put them down on paper. They don't want to get things wrong. They don't want to start writing until they have the absolute 100% best planned answer possible. There's all sorts of reasons why we prevent ourselves from actually starting the writing process. And I want you to be okay with getting things wrong and making mistakes and maybe not writing things as perfectly as it is in your head. Because the more that we practice this now, the easier it will be for you in the exam. It's better that you feel this discomfort now than you do when you take your exams in June, May, June, whenever it is. Trust me. So be okay with being uncomfortable in this video. I know it's difficult, but we can obviously figure it out as we go along. So the requirements really quickly for what you need to actually engage with this video specifically. You need to understand what the outline and explain 10-mark question requires you to do, and you also need to understand the assessment objectives. You need to have chosen a 10-mark outline and explain question already. We've been using one in this series where we've been looking at consumption and social class. You can use that one, you can use whichever one you want, as long as it follows the outline and explain type of question. You need to be able to identify which concept is affecting the other concept in the question. So what I mean by that is, we understand for this question that we're using for the video series that social class is affecting consumption. Okay, we've established that. The focus can be changed depending on what the question is. So it might be asking you about gender, it might be asking you about sexuality, it might be asking you about ethnicity. The idea is to understand which one this question is asking you about. And then finally, you'll need a mind map of some sort with potential discussion points for the 10-mark question. Now, it doesn't have to be a mind map, but you need some sort of paper where it's got ideas jotted down that you could use to help guide you through the question. So the objectives. We need to understand what factors are going to influence our answer selection. So we have multiple points we can talk about. Because the question is asking you for 2 reasons, we know there are more than 2 reasons. Therefore, we need to have an idea in our heads as to how we're going to go about selecting the points. And it'll be different for everyone. And then the second part is developing the chains of reasoning for your selected point. So how to start writing it. Now, again, one thing I do want to mention, which I should have mentioned earlier, was although the question is asking us to answer with 2 reasons why, for the focus of this video and the next one, we're only going to be looking at 1. Okay, if you can do 1, you can eventually do 2. So don't think you have to do this planning phase for both points. Just focus on 1 point for now. So, the factors. What do we need to consider when we're selecting our points? Now, everyone in the class is going to have a different strength and a different weakness. So when you all have your mind maps available to you, if it was possible to see every student's mind map for a particular question, I obviously can't guarantee it, but a lot of students will pick different things to focus on for their first point. So we'll discuss this in more depth later on. But the criteria that you should base your decision on should be the following. Suitability. So does your point actually answer the question? This seems so obvious. You're probably thinking, well, of course I'm going to only write about something that's going to answer the question. I get that, I do, but you would be surprised what happens in the heat of the moment in exams when panic is at an all-time high. Students don't read the question. Students think they can answer with a different focus point. For example, they may start talking about ethnicity rather than social class because they are worried that their knowledge on social class isn't high enough, so they try and make it up by talking about something else. They don't plan. Lots of things happen in exams. Okay, you'll obviously have experienced that pressure before. So it needs to answer the question. Knowledge. So how much do you actually know about the point you've raised? I'll give you an example. Let's say I wanted to talk about conspicuous consumption as my first reason as to why social class may affect consumption. That's a brilliant point. We understand what that point is. But what if I didn't understand what that point is in the exam? I could write it, I could make that my first point, but if I can't elaborate on it, if I can't explain it in depth, and if I can't link it back to the question, it's going to serve me no purpose. So, although it would be a wonderful thing to talk about, if you don't know enough about it, you have to be aware of your own limitations in the moment. Now, obviously, in this scenario, you can go about you can go and read on it, and I would encourage you to do that. This whole process helps to expose potential weaknesses that you may have, but you have to be realistic with it too. There could be a brilliant thing to talk about, but if you don't know enough about it, it's not going to get you very far. And then finally, application. So, are you able to apply the point that you've raised back to the question? It may be a standalone brilliant point, but does it actually link back? There are lots of things you can talk about with social class, but they have to link back to consumption. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So, the task itself, break it into two parts. You need to look at your mind map that you've got. And you need to look for points that stand out to you. So, what I mean by that is, there may be a couple of concepts on there that you feel really confident about, and therefore they are probably the best ones to go with straight away to start writing. You can also take the time to group up other concepts that might go together as part of the answer. Remember that 10-mark questions are testing your ability to show in-depth understanding and also be able to piece together various concepts that may not fit together in a textbook, but if you can weave them together and make a logical argument as to why they should be together, that's where you get your marks. And we'll demonstrate all this when we come to the mind map section in this video. And then the second part is to begin writing. I put blurting here. If you don't know what blurting is, it's where you take all your ideas in your head, you write down everything you know about a particular topic. And this task can kind of be seen as a mix between, well, I guess you could call it focus blurting if there's such a thing. You need to be comfortable with writing about everything you know about your particular point. And the idea of this task is so you can see where it would have got you in the exam. You can see how much you actually know. You might go into it thinking, oh, I'm going to write so much about this. And then you start writing and you think, oh, actually, it doesn't really link back to the question. Or you might take a point that you weren't very comfortable with, and it turns out that the ideas start flowing through. I mean, those are both extremes, but you get the idea. In terms of the writing process, there's guidance I can give you, but a lot of it's going to come down to you just trying it and seeing. The easiest part is to identify your reason within the first sentence. And we will obviously cover that in the cool paragraph, but your first sentence should set the scene where you outline. The second part is you need to then explain that reason with your knowledge as you go into it. So names, theories, concepts, etc. that come to mind, showing that in-depth understanding about that particular topic. And then after that, if you can apply any real-world examples where possible to demonstrate deeper understanding, so that might be things you've read in the news or seen in the news, That might be real life examples of things that you're aware of that could apply to this, things that won't necessarily be in the textbook, but it shows that you've gone beyond just what is expected of you in the class. And then finally, please don't forget that this is not a final answer. The answer I've produced further down in this video is not a perfect answer. It's just to demonstrate what the end result of your task may look like. Remember, we are practicing our ability to take these abstract ideas that are in our heads and try and link them together to form a draft. We are not trying to write the perfect answer right now. Over time, you will improve. Don't let that be the block for you, that you're scared of not getting that A star. Go ahead and write. So if we scroll down here, you may be familiar with this mind map. We covered it in the previous video. And there's lots of different concepts on here. And if I had you, if obviously the viewer, if you were here with me, you might pick out various points in here as your first paragraph. But we're all very different, and we all have different strengths and weaknesses. So just for the purpose of this video, I'm going to say that I feel the most comfortable writing about consumer identity. And then that means that we also take in this. I know enough about the seduced and repressed. I know about Bowman. Is there anything else in this mind map that I might be able to link? Well, you would spend time doing this, of course. For me, I might potentially want to write about financial differences. I might want to talk about less disposable income. And I might want to talk about buy now, pay later options. Let's see how this might look in an actual example of blurting. So if we scroll down here. Again, this is not the perfect answer. I can't stress that enough. Don't look at this and think, oh, that's an A-star answer. It's not even a full answer. I just wrote down things that I knew as if I was trying to do the activity as if I want you to do it. So there are things I could add, there are things that I could take away, but the whole point is we now have taken those few ideas from the top and we have something concrete that we can work with. So you can see here in the first bit, super easy, I've just identified the point. You can do that for every paragraph. And then scattered throughout, I have demonstration of knowledge. Again, I could probably talk way more, but we're just getting started. And then applying real-world examples to the concept of consumer identities. So in the textbook, you probably aren't going to be taught about examples such as PayPal and Klarna, but we do have knowledge on buy now, pay later schemes. TikTok as well is probably not going to be in the textbook, but if you have done some wider reading, obviously you'll be aware of it. And this is an example of taking those mind map points and trying to apply them into some sort of structure where we look at taking a concept, explaining a concept, and applying real world examples of that concept to the question. Okay. So with all that being said, I can imagine that feels like a significant jump from having that mind map to what you're seeing here. You just have to trust the process. You have to start writing. That is the only way that you'll get over this hump. Even if it's completely wrong, the experience of writing, you will eventually improve. Okay? So, in terms of what's next, you need to repeat this task as many times as you would like, or as many times as you would need. You might want to just pick one point and then try and develop that point in the cool paragraph in the next video. You might want to do this activity 5 times. It's completely up to you. Move on when you're ready. Okay, this is a significant jump, I understand that. If you are still having trouble and you just can't bring yourself to write anything down, I would suggest that you try and talk to people around you. So talk to a family member, talk to a friend, talk to a teddy bear if you've got that in the house. because sometimes when we try and talk things out, we explain it better than when we write. And if we can talk it out first, you may be able to find the writing process a lot easier. Okay, we'll leave it there. I appreciate this is a bit of a longer video. What I need you to do is focus on this task, refer back to the video as many times as you need to get the details. And in the final video, we're going to spend some time understanding cool paragraph structure and taking our draft that we have and seeing if we can turn it into a more structured, more well-developed answer. Okay, right. I'll see you all in the next video. Take care.